that is what this is all about. And today we have the focus is on knowledge management, KPO, LPO, big data. These are things which are getting into a lot of focus. And what the industry refers to and what we talk as SCAM. It's easier for me to remember SCAM. It is social, cloud, analytics and mobility. I think is what will change the way businesses are run. And I think this is what will make a huge difference. Guys, as a word is more convenient for me in terms of an acronym, so use the regular industry acronym which is used for this. But the way the industry is shaping up is the focus on various competencies. I have stressed on the domains which are extremely critical. And two is in terms of that we work online on customer systems and processes. And I was pleasantly surprised while my team in Bangalore said that you need to go to Xlri and we've had one of your seniors joining us. I for a minute did not imagine that I'll be addressing a batch of 7+ years average experience team. I was telling them yesterday, last night, your team which met me here. I thought it would be 2 to 3 years at best. And when I heard it was 7 years, I was pleasantly surprised and I liked what I heard. You will understand better in terms of what I'm trying to state, the need of industry exposure, the need of understanding how businesses work, the focus on domain, the use of technology, and things like that, and the various processes that are there in running this industry. It is not as simple as writing a code or just looking at an operations in terms of how work is happening, but in terms of understanding the entire life cycle of a business. And that's what I think makes a difference for this industry. And I would therefore look at not only in this industry, I think across businesses are changing the way things are happening. It's more or less, it is automation. It is what people look at in the past when BPO was being sold. The popular refrain, my big brother Infosys technologies would tell us, you guys come and only ask, kitne aadmi the? Because it is a manpower intensive industry. I think no more selling is as simple as that. Because with automation, with technology, with big data and the likes, I think even customers are becoming smarter. What is repeatable, I think, is the realm of technology. But there is a huge need of human intervention, and that's where all of these domains become that much more critical. In the past, as I told you earlier, this industry looked at basically people who could manage large teams and work on defined processes. But today, the way the industry is evolved, an understanding of the domain, the understanding of the industry, the understanding of how to manage people become equally critical. And I'm sure this batch will appreciate it a lot more than what you think that is required in running these operations. Because traditionally, this industry has suffered, and believe me, last year when NASSCOM came up with the report, it said 43% of all new urban jobs were in this segment. If that is the case, and with businesses, repetitive businesses at the low end moving out of the country, it became that much more important that we need to scale up the value chain. And that's why we believe that this industry will see greater consolidation as it grows. Gone are the days where you see 30 to 40% year-on-year growth. I think the industry is going at about 12% or so. And our company is at about 18 to 20% is where we are growing at this point of time. I will relate a lot of what is happening in this industry in terms of what's happening in Infosys. So that gives me a greater context. And you can then frame your questions in terms of how or why we are different and things like that. But today I'm making the industry synonymous with Infosys BPO, not because I want to market Infosys BPO, because my is what I've experienced in this organization. And my exposure in NASCOM too. Because except for the last 5 years, I've not been in this industry at all. I've been in manufacturing, I've been in services, I've been in pharma, and I've been in core IT. So this exposure is for the last 5 years, and therefore my focus will be more on terms of what this organization is in the industry, and you can have a better understanding from my perspective. Ultimately, irrespective of what is mentioned in this slide, customers today are looking at a one-stop shop in terms of outcomes. They would not want to deal with multiple vendors, and the BPO industry is now consolidating, and therefore you see today a lot more M&As happening, where people don't have that competency in their operations. They take over a company, whether it is Genpact, whether it is TCS, or even Infosys. I remember a time when we took over entire back-end operations of Philips. And today, I get a top quadrant of Gartner in terms of the F&A domain. So to that extent, I think each player in the industry is positioning itself as a one-stop player, where you can have all services under one roof. And that is where my focus, when I go into campuses like yours, is to look at people with rich domain capabilities and exposure, and not just a strong, sound footing from a conceptual framework. Because ultimately we need to look at effectiveness from a customer perspective and how we can optimize and get the best returns for the customer. And when I speak of growth, domain, M&As, today as a company, we are located in 23 locations and in 13 countries. And some of the things which I can share in terms of my own experiences, most organizations in India have the challenge of thinking global. For the simple reason we are so India-centric. There's so much to do, so much to set right, so much to get your processes in place, especially in an era of July. It becomes critical that we focus a lot more in developing our processes. And we become so India-centric that when we think of opening a new operations in any of the global locations, it becomes a huge challenge. When we first took over Philips operations, we started operations in Bangkok, Chennai, Poland, and China. These were the places where we had Philips back-end F&A operations that were happening. And it was a challenge in terms of integrating, forget people from other countries, even our offices in Chennai. From an Infosys concept point of view, we believe we are the best. And Philips, having its own tradition, said that these guys would understand, what's happening here. And I think it gave us a very strong footing in terms of what it is to do as we acquire companies across the globe. And we've done today 4 acquisitions as we speak, and each one in a different geography. One was in the Philips I told you, then we took a company in the US which was in the insurance business. And then that gave us a good leverage in the insurance space, and today we steadily moved up the quadrant in terms of offerings in this place. And from there, we took over Portland, which is the number 2 company in Australia in the sourcing and procurement place. And sourcing and procurement up to the level of category management. So it is just not ordering or seeing that logistics is managed. The entire life cycle, including category A items, are managed through this acquisition. And finally, the US company acquired another small company called Marsh. It was the back-end operations of the consulting giant Marsh, which again is into life insurance. So ultimately, I think the industry today is consolidating and looking at leveraging, getting competencies which is not available. From an Infosys perspective, we are just not acquiring companies for growth. We are not acquiring companies to increase our headcount. The focus is in areas where we have not high core competencies is what we are in the business of acquiring. And I think it is paying good dividends as an organization. As I speak, I think we have crossed 28,000 in terms of people in the organization. And that's how we are growing at this point of time. As I told you, when I speak of domain, the one on to your left is where the domain plays. For all of you who have worked in these domains, I think there's definitely a career, and with your conceptual framework of what you pick up in Xlri and the experience which you've got in the past, I think people who wants to make a career for life, this is available in terms of what we think this industry is capable of providing. So let's just go a minute back in what I said. Think of a guy who's coming out of Infosys, who's had no exposure other than passing on to becoming a BCom or a BA or a BSc, who was in a data entry operations, to a situation where he is exposed without doing an MBA in domains which otherwise he or she couldn't have thought of. That is the promise this industry holds. And imagine if 20 million people by 2020 in this industry is what I am talking of. And look at the industry verticals which we service. So clearly, one, say in the BFSI segment, the vertical is clearly industry solutions. So people can grow in a vertical segment of an industry, say BFSI for example, or say there is a chartered accountant or an MBA finance for example. She can move across industry verticals. Very few industries have this advantage. Today I have 143 clients as I speak. And imagine all 143 of them are from different industry sectors, verticals, countries and geographies. And the excitement doesn't end there. The fact is, if a person delivers, probably he or she can move that location in terms of delivering value to the client from that location. I think that's what we need to focus on, because I'm sure you are not doing this one-year program just to understand a domain. You're looking out for ensuring you have a career which should make a difference. And therefore, I can only state that when you choose a career for yourself, you should look at the organization you go in gives you an entry to meet your aspirations of what you set for yourself. Because ultimately, anyone and everyone can come and do PPTs. And I always insist, just because a speaker is from an organization, he or she is speaking for that organization. I think here, my role, because I have not come for a pre-placement talk, my role is to expose you to what you should be looking into. Since I am on this side of the platform, probably I could give examples of what my organization does. That's the own intention, sole intention. But as students and the experience, ultimately you should think of what's good for you. Where do you think you will fit in becomes extremely critical. And you should therefore look at one in terms of, are you in the right industry? Are you getting into the right organization at one level? But more importantly, is that organization or the industry, will it provide me path for me to reach my own career aspirations. And when we talk of that you are in the right place, the right time for the right job, are you looking at organizations which are just living in past glory or providing you enough and more options where you can question, have a say in what things need to do, what you need to be doing, the way businesses are run? On the day one, I'm sure nobody has the right, including the CEO of the organization, to say, tomorrow I want this changed. But the fact is the environment, is the business, is the organization providing you that space, is what you need to consider. And therefore it becomes that much more critical that you network appropriately with your friends, colleagues, seniors, and do your own research in terms of where you need to further your career. As an organization, I believe I can talk from an HR perspective. Normally, whether it's training, whether it's policies, whether it's promotions, it's in the realm of HR. What I and what as Infosys we do differently, as Infosys BPO we do differently is, for a policy we have a policy council, which is again a cross-section of the organization. For training and development, again is a cross-section team. In the training and development council, traditionally an HR realm, here I have the head of operations, the head of horizontals, the head of quality, the head of risks, the head of geography, and myself with one representative in the training and development council. That sets the agenda in terms of what is the type of talent, what is the core competencies, what is the training, what are the interventions, what are the mandatory programs and certifications, is decided by this group and not by one HR head who believes this is what it needs to happen. Similarly in terms of policies, similarly in terms of guidelines of the promotion and progression, similarly in terms of employee engagement. So the minute I let go of what is core to me in running my operations, actually that's the first step in being different and getting a greater buy-in. And therefore, it is more in most of the decisions that get taken in Infosys BPO comes from a cross-section and not just by one individual heading that function. And in terms of, especially in an industry like ours, where the churn of employees is so high, in all our scorecards, we have a mandate. It says 70% of growth for people in lateral positions has to come from within. So whether it is the CEO of Infosys BPO, for the last 3 years, it had last 3 CEOs, it has been growth from within and not somebody who's come from outside, down to the lowest level. And therefore, when I speak of making a career in an organization, does the organization commit to that growth? Because in all the executive councils, KRAs, there is a mandate to ensure growth from within. And definitely, I think you need to get into an industry or an organization which is free from biases, providing equality, equity, growth, fairness, no harassment, are areas which we need to look into. That is at the base level. Then you have things like, is there scope for more learning? Is there scope for growth? Is there scope for adding to your